We're going to explain the virtual environment on the Macintosh for Python. This applies to Linux and Windows as well too. But on the Mac, I think on Linux 2 or WSL, you're going to have a system Python installed at usually user bin Python. In this case, it's Python 3 that's installed. So in the default path, unless you modify it, you'll have a version of Python, which is on this version of the Mac, it's 3.9.6. So if I run the system Python and list the Python packages that were installed with it, I'll get a shorter list. But I'm not using the system Python because it's older and you don't want to clutter up your system. By default, I'm using this Python, which is in a different location because I'm using a system called pyenv. And the version I'm using by default is 3.13, which is different than the version that's installed with the Mac. They're both installed on my system. And there's much more installed in my system Python. Not using the one that ships with Mac OS, but I've set up my own. Normally, the version of Python on my system that I'm doing is 3.13, but for this different project, I'm using Python 3.12. UV run Python version is 3.12. So if I look for the location of Python, it's in the local directory. Right? So this is the name of the folder here. This is the venv, and the Python is located within the virtual environment. So if you want to use it by default within your main project here, there's a subfolder which it doesn't come up and you ls-a, and then you'll see the folders that start with a dot, and then source will run a program bin, and then there's something called activate. So I'm going to source it. It's going to run this script called activate, and then now I have this. It's in the virtual environment Python, which is 3.12, and I was using the one in here. To deactivate it, you go deactivate, and then let's say I'm running cursor. So because there's multiple versions of Python, in the bottom bar here, you can select the version, one of the different versions of Python installed. There's many versions of Python installed on my system. The one to use is going to do dot slash, and then there's another dot, and then there's a venv bin Python. So it should correspond to the same place that I have my project root project in. So if you don't match it up, you may get various problems with your editor. So let's say that I'm randomly going to choose this one here, and there's a whole bunch of syntax errors because I'm using the wrong Python. I have to use the one that's within the virtual environment, and then the linter warnings go away. In the left-hand bar, there is a pyproject.toml, and it shows some of the dependencies that were installed. In our tutorial, we've just installed this one package, but this one package installs a whole bunch of other packages. So this is just for convenience, right? Where you just install this one package, but if you look at your UV lock file, there's a whole bunch of other packages that were automatically installed. And it's a rather long list. right? I'm only on C here. It's alphabetical. And in fact, with our current project, if I do UV tree, there's a whole bunch of packages that were installed automatically. If you've been following along with this tutorial, you've created the virtual environment automatically with UV init, and you may not know what the virtual environment is. The virtual environment creates a sandboxed version, so it's an isolated version of Python that is separate from your system Python and the Python used in your other projects. This Python can be a different version, which could be important for compatibility with the other packages. That's why in this tutorial and in most of your classes, you're going to use a virtual environment of Python so that the system is replicable. If you're following a tutorial or homework assignments, the the version of Python that you're using may not work with some of the packages. So you have to sync it up with whatever the teacher or the instructor is showing you. Also, if you've installed a package in one version of Python, it's not going to be accessible to other versions of Python on your system. So even if you installed it, you're running command line with pip and you've installed some big package, it's not going to be accessible from within the project that you're working on, which is as it should be. And you should, in general, only install the main packages for your project within your specific project. This last point here is how do you activate the Python or how do you use it? You can use UV run Python or UV run on another command, or if you want to have it be active all the time, use this keyword source, which is from the shell, and then there's a subdirectory .venv/bin/activate, and from that point on, within your one directory, you'll be able to use that specific version of Python. If it's confusing, you just need to practice it and there shouldn't be any problems with this tutorial. And I think a lot of people, they kind of struggle with this concept for years because sometimes it works, sometimes your application is working. You don't know where the specific version of Python is, but if you're having problems, you can drop a comment or a question in it. And if you just keep practicing, you can really control your virtual environments and know where the packages are installed, know like why it's working funky, know when you are using a certain version of Python and avoid and debug your problems that way. But for now, it should be fun since we installed a virtual environment, we installed a specific version of Python in your virtual environment, and you should be happy following the tutorial. Hope you're having a great day.